All right, we're officially live on YouTube. So I'm going to put it in the chat for all of our panelists and participants. Feel free to share this YouTube link far and wide to invite as many people as possible to hear about citizen science. So let's see. I'm just going to quickly email that link to myself, and then we'll go back to our slides. And for those of you who are just coming in here, feel free to drop in the chat what you're excited to learn about today, any questions you might have, just anything you want to know or who you are, just please introduce yourself in the chat. All right, I think we're 1 minute till start time. All right, it is 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I think we're ready to get started. Anna, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to our live event. I'm Dr. Anna Funk, Associate Editor of Discover Magazine, reporting from my lovely home office. And I'm joined today by our friends from SciStarter, which is an online community for all things citizen science. And also with us are 3 scientists who are here to talk about how you can help them with their research on COVID-19. So many thanks to our friends from SciStarter and our presenters for being here. If you want to follow along with us at home, you should go ahead and pull up the website, which is scistarter.org/COVID-19. That's COVID-19. You can sign up for a free account. Should only take a minute, and you'll be able to see all the projects we're talking about today. And one more note before we start, I'll mention to our viewers who are watching in Zoom that you are muted and you don't have a video. So no worries if you didn't change out of your PJs or your dog is barking or whatever. But you can and should send us messages through the chat function. So there's a little button on the bottom of your screen somewhere that says chat. We'll see your messages. And we ask that you also set your chats to presenters and participants. I'd like to take a quick poll of our Zoom participants. Sorry, YouTubers, you can't vote in the Zoom poll, but I'd really like to know if you have ever participated in a citizen science project before. There should be a little window that pops up on your screen. I'm gonna vote. Oh, host and panelists can't vote. I'm not gonna vote. I don't know how long to wait. Carolyn will tell me.
Yeah, the votes are pouring in. 90% have voted. So I think we'll cut it off.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Last chance to vote and end poll. Share results.
Ooh. All right. Looks like we have 48% no's. So that's good. We have first timers here. And then about a quarter each, yes, many times, and yes, once. That's totally great. Nobody's not sure. Put that in just in case. Okay, so that's really awesome. Personally, I'm a total newbie. I had not done any citizen science until I tried out all the projects for yesterday. So really excited about that. Okay, one more question. I also want to know who you are and why you're here. So some of you are probably aspiring citizen scientists, parents, teachers, random person on the internet, Anna's mom, I don't know.
All right, we're at about 70% have voted. Keep those votes coming.
Vote, vote, vote.
All right, 80%. All right, and it's your last chance to vote. 3, 2, 1. End poll. Share results.
Aha. Okay, we've got almost half teachers, educators, troop leaders, etc. That's awesome. That's totally what I expected. We've got 28% aspiring citizen scientists, 2% parents, 4% just a bored person on the internet. Hey, a bored person on the internet. And 17% none of these. That's a good spread. Cool. So I think I fall somewhere between the aspiring citizen scientist and educator, I think. But okay, now that I know who you are, I'll tell you a little bit more about me, and then we'll get to the people you actually want to hear from. So I'm associate editor at Discover Magazine, which means I get to follow along with new science news that's coming out and figure out which studies are the most interesting and the most important for people to know about. And then I get to help tell those stories, which is crazy fun. I also make YouTube videos, which you should totally check out. And occasionally I do a little prairie ecology, you know, in my free time, mostly wrapping up science projects from my past life. So with that as enough killing time, hopefully you all are all signed on and ready to go, settled into your new accounts on scistarter.org/COVID-19. So we've got 3 great speakers today who are going to be talking about their projects that they would really like your help with. So first up will be Dr. Brian Kopnick, who is a research scientist at the Institute for Protein Design at the University of Washington in Seattle. And he's made us an online game that we can play to help researchers discover new antiviral drugs that could work against coronavirus. It's called Foldit, and he'll tell us more about that in a sec. Next up, we'll we'll hear from Dr. Greg Marcus, who does research and practices medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. He's working on tracking the spread of COVID-19 across the world, and you can help him out by taking some really easy surveys on the app called COVID-19 Citizen Science. Easy to remember. He and other researchers will use this data to help predict and prevent further infections. Our last speaker today will be epidemiologist Kara Seawalk from Boston Children's Hospital. Kara is here to tell us about COVID Near You, which is a project where you just report your own symptoms if you're feeling sick, regardless of whether you've been tested for coronavirus or not, which will let scientists help track the spread of the pandemic. So here's Brian to tell you about Foldit.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing and pass it over to Brian.
Can anyone?
We can hear you.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kepnick. I am a research scientist at the Institute for Protein Design at the University of Washington. I am a biochemist by training, and I studied protein folding and protein design in my PhD. And I'm going to tell you about Foldit, which is a video game that we use to crowdsource research in protein folding. And specifically, since the coronavirus pandemic has kind of swept the world, we've been challenging Foldit players to design drugs that could be useful eventually for COVID-19. So let's see, switch the slide and hopefully everyone can see that. Foldit is a protein folding game. So proteins are molecules that fold up into very precise three-dimensional shapes. This is a very, very fascinating process, but also difficult to understand. And by playing Foldit, you help us understand how these proteins fold. For coronavirus, Foldit players are designing brand new proteins that could be used to fight against coronavirus. Foldit is completely free to play, and you can download it from our website, https://fold.it. It's run by academics at universities across the US, and it's completely not for profit. So we are all just researchers trying to understand more about proteins and how they can help us fight coronavirus. You do not have to have any experience or knowledge about proteins to play Foldit. That's one of the beauties of it is when you play Foldit, you have a score at all times. And this reflects the stability of your model, of the design that the protein that you're designing. So all you have to do in Foldit is focus on increasing this score. This score is actually a sophisticated energy calculation. So there's some really, really complicated computations going on behind the scenes, but you don't have to know any of the science in order to actually be a successful Foldit player. So when you compete with other Foldit players to increase your score, find that the players with the highest score, with the most stable designs, those designs tend to be more useful in the lab. So when you, what we do is we take the Foldit designs from Foldit players, we take the best designs and we test them in the lab to see if they actually are useful against coronavirus. This is all made possible because we had a breakthrough just last year in protein design with Foldit. We showed that Foldit players could design brand new proteins from scratch just by playing Foldit and optimizing their score. And on the right, what we have is the designs that Foldit players made in computers, and this is in the rainbow colors. And the gray is the actual experimental structure of that protein. So how that protein actually folds in real life, with some zoom shots on the right. But the important thing to notice here is that they are spot on, is that when Foldit players design proteins in a computer game, those proteins fold up in real life exactly as designed. In coronavirus, I want to tell you about two different challenges that we have in Foldit that could be useful in the fight against coronavirus. The first challenge is an antiviral challenge, and the second is anti-inflammatory. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the science behind these two approaches. So first, we'll focus on the antiviral approach. Most of you are probably familiar now with this image of the structure of the virus, and this is an image from the CDC. It's kind of an artist depiction of what the coronavirus looks like. But the virion of coronavirus, this particle, is covered in proteins. There's some different kinds of proteins here, but the ones I want to focus on are these big red proteins called the spike. These spike proteins are what recognize human cells and allows the virus to latch onto human cells and then get sucked into human cells and infect the human cell. So our goal in Foldit with these antiviral challenges is to design a protein that could block how these spikes infect human cells. And it turns out that there's not a lot you have to do in order for that to happen. You just have to design a protein that can stick to one of these spikes. And if your protein sticks to the spike, then that spike will not be able to infect human cells anymore. And on the right, this is what this looks like in Foldit, is we have the structure of the spike protein on the bottom, and Foldit players can design any protein that they want on the top. This colorful protein is a Foldit player design. Foldit players you can design a protein that would stick to the spike and stop it from interacting with human cells. The second approach we're taking is an anti-inflammatory approach. So some of you may have heard recently about a cytokine storm. In the most serious coronavirus cases, the medical complications of coronavirus are actually caused indirectly by the virus. And what's happening is the immune system is launched into overdrive and produces a large number of these signaling molecules called cytokines. Cytokines usually induce inflammation and some other immune responses, and those things are supposed to help us fight viral infections. But when the cytokine response gets out of control, then the immune system kind of becomes overstimulated and can start attacking human organs. So this is why you get multiple organ failure and sepsis from severe coronavirus cases, is a overstimulation of the immune system and excessive signaling from these cytokines. So it's thought that one possible treatment for these severe COVID-19 cases would be to block this cytokine response and tone down the immune system. So that's the second approach we have in Foldit, is Foldit players can design a protein that would block this cytokine signaling. So instead of blocking the coronavirus directly, these are proteins that could block the immune system overstimulation and help the convalescence of COVID-19. This is a difficult challenge. You might ask why we're asking citizen scientists to do this at all. And we do. We have researchers working in the lab on this as we speak, doing the exact same thing as Foldit players, trying to design proteins that could stop the viral spike or that could stop this cytokine signaling. But this is a difficult problem. And the reason is that proteins, in order for a successful protein to work, it has to make lots and lots of small interactions with the target. So it might be kind of hard to see in this picture from Foldit. A successful design will make all kinds of hydrogen bonds and good packing with the target. And the shape of this designed protein is really, really important for this protein being able to carry out its function. So basically, this is a very, very difficult problem just to get a protein with the right shape that can bind to the target. This problem is made even harder when we consider that this protein has to fold up all by itself. So this is really a double whammy. We have to design a protein that first can fold up into the correct shape, and second can make all of these correct interactions and bind to the targets that we're trying to target. This is a very hard problem, but we found that Foldit players in the past are very, very good at these spatial reasoning problems and kind of the big picture problem solving that tends to help us with protein design problems. The more people that we have playing Foldit, the better chance we have of finding protein drugs that could be useful against coronavirus. And I will say that we've been running these puzzles for a few weeks now. We've already selected our top 99 designs so far for the antiviral route, and we'll be doing experiments over the next couple of weeks to figure out if these proteins designed by Foldit players actually block how spike protein interacts. If we find in our lab that these proteins do seem to block the spike protein on the virus, then that would be very exciting. And these proteins would then go on to further testing in cell and animal models, and eventually into humans for clinical trials. So it's really easy to get started. To play Foldit, you can just go to our website, which is fold.it, and download. We have to started. Again, you don't have to have any knowledge about proteins to play, but everyone who contributes helps to this effort. So I'm happy to take any questions if there's any in the chat, but I think I'm about out of time.
Thank you so much. If you go ahead and stop sharing, we'll pass it back over to our host, Dr. Anna Funk.
All right.
All right. I saw a question come in the chat. Anna, are we going to wait till the end for questions?
I think so, if that's okay with everybody. All right.
Sounds good.
Alexander from the chat, hold that thought. Okay, cool. Thanks a lot, Brian. So I tried Foldit yesterday, and I'll say it took me about 15 minutes just to like make an account and download it and get everything running. I played it for about 25 minutes. Don't tell my boss. I only got to level 9, but I think it was okay. So I don't know if you mentioned this, but there's like a tutorial, like there's like a campaign mode at the beginning that really walks you through like everything you need to know. Like you kept showing those screenshots of like the coronavirus, and I kept being like, oh God, that looks hard. But that's not how it starts. That's not like level 1. Level 1 is like, here's a super basic thing. Fold it to accomplish one super basic thing. And you're like, oh, I got it. I got it. So I thought it was really satisfying. I know a little about proteins, but I don't think that helped at all. It's just playing the game and like getting your points high. So anyway, I liked it. I'll play it again. Anyway, so next up we're gonna have, who did I say was next? Greg. Take
Yeah,
it
and Greg,
away.
go ahead and share your
Dr.
screen.
Marcus.
It's all yours.
Very good. Thank you, and welcome everyone, and thanks for your interest. So I will trust you guys. Someone will let me know if you can't see my slides adequately. So I'm going to talk about our COVID-19 citizen science study, and just a little bit of history to provide some context. So I'm a cardiologist, and my clinical practice is actually really in arrhythmias. So when I'm not doing research, I'm implanting pacemakers and defibrillators and doing catheter ablations and treating people with heart rhythm disturbances. And now almost a decade ago, we had this idea to leverage the internet to invite any interested adult to join our Healthy Heart study. The idea being we know there are a lot of citizen scientists out there, a lot of people who really would like to contribute to research, but they all, many times don't live next door to a major academic medical center or have time to take off work to come into a brick and mortar facility. And so we've developed a lot of experience with Healthy Heart, which was really purely internet web-based as opposed to a mobile app. And we developed a lot of lessons learned from that, one of which being that people tend not to respond terribly well to email based surveys, although there's many advantages to that. And that motivated us to start thinking about developing a mobile app. We do, however, this is the most recent map of kind of where our current participants are, now more than 250,000 around the world, which is extremely gratifying. And these individuals and everyone here is eligible to, as long as you're an adult, can contribute to this, as well as the COVID-related project I'll describe. But really, these individuals serve as a research platform, a cohort to then reach out to invite to various studies. Given that experience, we applied for a NIH grant to serve as essentially the national infrastructure to help facilitate mobile health-based research in general. And we've called that platform Eureka, which has several aspects to it. So there's a web-based part, but also now we have a mobile app upon which we can build various studies. We have a cloud backend that can accommodate millions of individuals and very dense data from those people. And then we have an administrative panel. We've now worked with various investigators around the country, companies, academic centers to run their studies on our platform. So really, the platform is built precisely for collaboration and bringing in ideas from other scientists and individuals. We've developed these workflows that provide templates and fairly seamless mechanisms to get studies up and running quite quickly. And this is just an example of various collaborators that have utilized and funders utilized the platform thus far. And of course, with the COVID pandemic, we thought, we should really leverage this resource we had built in the hopes of collecting useful data that may help inform policies and individuals in the public to help mitigate their risk. So the project, the COVID Citizen Science Study, has several goals. The overarching goal is really to use mobile health technology, these technologies we're all carrying around in our pockets on a regular basis, to combat the novel coronavirus by enriching understanding via rigorous human subject-based research. And some specifics here include identifying readily modifiable risk factors for infection, transmission, and severity of the disease that could inform best practices. Also to identify risk factors that might not be as immediately actionable, but might tell us something about the biology and the behavior of the virus. Also to study how various policy decisions influence actual behavior in individuals, and then in turn, how that affects disease risk. And then understanding that even independent of the virus, that sheltering in place, the various social distancing measures we're all taking may have other health effects, such as on mental health, that have yet to be fully realized. And then finally, we really do view this as a platform for collaborating investigators to utilize, to share their ideas. And in many ways, as I'll describe towards the end here, we're thinking of our participants as also potential collaborating investigators to truly be citizen scientists. So it is the one real exclusion criteria, and we could get into exactly why this is, but essentially one does have to be an adult. That doesn't mean that those younger than age 18 can't contribute. They certainly can by helping to spread the word and encouraging others to sign up. Currently, it is mobile app based, although we are rapidly working on a web-based version. So currently, individuals do need to have a smartphone to contribute. Individuals also really should read English, mainly just because we haven't had a chance to translate it yet. We would love to translate it and get this out to other populations and are seeking support to be able to do that. We have a deep link, so essentially a URL that when clicked on brings that user to whatever the app store is. If it's an iPhone, it'll bring them to the Apple App Store, for example. And then within our app brings them specifically to the COVID-19 Citizen Science Study. The link is useful if we send this via email and then people can forward that. But if I'm giving a talk or we have someone on the radio that's trying to spread the word, trying to have people write that out or remember this long link isn't the most useful way to spread the word. So another option we have is what we call a text back, which means, so for the specific example here, you text the word all caps COVID to 41411. And here on the right, I took a screenshot from my own phone. So I've texted that word COVID to that number, and then you get this text back with that link that then you can easily click on to enroll. Importantly, either the URL or the tech spec can actually be varied and customized to individual groups or even individuals. And we've done this for a few organizations in our Healthy Heart study and even with this study. So one real example is working with the Rotary Club. And again, please take this as not specific to Rotary, but you can plug in there any organization, entity, employer, a family that can reach others, where that link will take individuals to the same study, but embedded within that is essentially a token that enables us to track where those people came from and even provide aggregate data. So our hope with Rotary, just to take that as an example where there are multiple clubs in communities throughout the world really, is we can then show them a map of here's how that spread. And we've tried to talk about it in terms of exponential spread in a good way, like the virus, but hopefully for more positive purposes. Similarly, the tech spec can be customized. If there's a group that wants to, like SciStarter, you could do COVID, SciStart or something, and that's what you text to 41411, and then we can track for SciStarter or again, whatever the organization is, who's coming in through there, and then provide that feedback. So in terms of the actual experience, once one downloads the app, they get the study card that gives a little description of the study. Individuals are asked to register, provide their phone number, and then there's a consent. So this is a fully IRB approved study, just as with any other kind of conventional research study that has all the backing and approvals necessary from the University of California, in our case specifically. And then the individual is brought to what we call an eVisit, short for electronic visit, that includes a demographic survey. We ask for permission from the individuals to share their geolocation from their smartphone. That permission is not required. So this is if they don't want to do it, they can skip on ahead and still be part of the study. We similarly ask for permissions to obtain other data that's being passively collected from their smartphones, such as step counts from HealthKit. Again, that is also optional. So we realize that some people may not be comfortable sharing that information, and that's fine. And we wanted to make sure those individuals could contribute. On the other hand, we think that these smartphone-based data will be incredibly valuable in providing clearly objective and passively recorded data that's really automatic. So it doesn't require any additional effort on the part of the participant that should be complementary to the survey questions. So then as well, in the baseline survey, we ask about location in terms of really zip code, occupation, various conditions at home that we wonder, and many others wonder, could this influence the risk of infection, such as having little kids at home, such as having a college-age kid that just came back from college, and where do they come from? If they have pets, does that affect the microbiome in a way that could affect risk? And then we ask a series of questions that are deliberately designed to be repeated weekly, so we can understand how these things are changing over time. And keep in mind, of course, we have various geographic regions under various government ordinances, so we can see how those things differ. So we ask everyone, have you been tested for COVID-19? And if the answer is yes, we ask the result. We're working on ways to validate those answers, such as simply calling people and asking them to take a picture and send it to us. We will be working on automating that shortly. We ask about their local government ordinances, their social distancing practices, hand hygiene, things such as their sleep quality, exercise, and alcohol consumption. We then ask about medical conditions, which, as I think we all know, may be very important in terms of risk, and then medications, things such as smoking or vaping or marijuana use. And then we end with our daily survey, which asks about current symptoms, household contacts, and social distancing. So this is kind of a layout of the experience thereafter. So they then get a daily survey, and the way they are notified about this is via the app by something that we and others call a push notification. So it's a little less intrusive than a text, a little bit more gentle. There's a trade-off here, as there often is in these sorts of research, where we don't want to be too burdensome or annoying. On the other hand, we want to make sure we're getting people's attention. And then there's and that's a very brief, again, 3-question survey. I have a video of that in a second. And then every week we ask a few more questions going back to those, and I'll highlight those again, some of those other questions here. If the participant doesn't respond to the push notification, they do get a text an hour later. And then every month we ask just a couple more questions in the same case, where if they don't respond to the push notification, we text them. So one of the challenges is, of course, hopefully people, and in fact, I'll show you a map of where people are coming from. They are all over the world. And so trying to figure out how to deal with time zones can be a challenge, and we don't want to wake people up in the middle of the night with these texts. But programming, specific times that vary person to person can take a lot of effort. So the way we've programmed it thus far is the timing of the push notification is based on when they started their survey, that time of day for that person, working under the assumption that hopefully they didn't happen to wake up at 2 a.m. that one time they started the survey, and usually they're asleep at 2 a.m., but rather that presumably is the time of day that works for them to be bugged a little bit about following up in the study. So this is a video that hopefully I can play of just the baseline, the daily survey, where they're asked to start. This is a check all that apply regarding various symptoms they may or may not have, and then people in their household, whether they have any of these symptoms, and then how many people did they interact with within 6 feet on that day. And that's it for the daily survey. The weekly survey, as I mentioned, really follows up to understand behaviors that may affect risk in greater detail. Again, visiting various locations, hand hygiene, overall concern about the virus, exercise, sleep, alcohol, and local government ordinances. And one of the advantages here is that we're collecting it in real time. And so we can just ask, in the last week, how much alcohol did you drink? Which is potentially much more accurate than, on average, how much alcohol do you tend to drink? Or same thing, this past week, how much, on average, how many hours of sleep did you get per night? Which we hope provide valuable data. And then monthly, in addition to those questions, we ask about employment. So has there been a change in your income? Are you working from home more? And we deliver these validated questionnaires regarding mood that provides a quantitative scale regarding depression and about anxiety as well. So just to talk about some of these other features. So here specifically the geolocation data. So from our Healthy Heart study, we previously published this proof of concept that we could, what we call geofence hospitalizations around the country. So there are many advantages to collecting that geolocation data. So one is just simply looking at social distancing measures, whether people are truly staying at home and to what degree, but also you can potentially help ascertain healthcare encounters this way, in a passive way, and even send triggered surveys depending on where an individual is. In terms of the smartphone-based data, there's a lot of valuable data in some of the really prosaic sorts of things that our phones are collecting anyway, such as screen time. So here we demonstrated that screen time could be a really useful marker of sleep. So in this figure, each row is a different individual, and essentially the blue represents no screen time, and every other color means they were interacting with their screens. And not surprisingly, it's mainly blue when you'd expect people to sleep, and this is adjusted for their time zone between about midnight and 6 o'clock. But presumably the people where you see no blue there, they probably weren't sleeping at that time. So a lot of useful information from this passively collected data. In terms of integrating other ideas, we realized that the production of knowledge regarding this virus and the pandemic is very rapid. And so we built the platform to be nimble iterative, adaptable, and are very interested in incorporating ideas from other individuals. So the app was built such that the backend populates the content on the app. So it doesn't require a restructuring, a reprogramming of the app to provide new content. And we're on a weekly basis, we're actually refining questions, we're trying to respond to feedback. We came up with this idea of what we're calling spice questions. The notion that we could send via text, for example, just a single question to everyone at a cohort, in the cohort, for a few reasons. One, it's very simple to program, so we can do it very rapidly. Two, we're very sensitive to minimizing participant burden. We know that in order to keep people engaged, we have to make this really easy to do. Three, again, we're getting a lot of ideas from investigators, from participants themselves. So it's a way to just incorporate that. A lot of these are just single questions like, do you take vitamin C supplements? Do you remove your shoes when you come into your home? Those sorts of things. And then finally, we hope it might help with engagement. If, once in a while, there's just some random question. It's almost like
I think Greg may have frozen. Anna, would you want to quickly step in?
Sure. I'm not sure what he was going to say.
I know he was very near the end of his presentation. I think he only had 2 slides left.
Okay. Well, I can tell you what I think of it because I signed up for it yesterday.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah. So, like I said, I tested out all the projects because I wanted to see what they're all about. I timed myself. It took me 7 minutes from start to finish, like logging on to the website. I plugged in my cell phone number and then it texted me the link. I downloaded the app on my phone, made an account, answered all the survey questions. That was all 7 minutes start to finish. So that was pretty easy. And that was like the longer version of the survey. And actually, while Greg was sitting here, I got the notification. Hold on, I'll tell you if it's still up. Yeah, excuse me, let me dismiss all my other ones. I got my daily reminder, COVID-19. So it seems super easy. And if it's helping people track the spread and learn stuff about COVID-19, I don't see why not to do it.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So do you want to have Kara get started while we see if Greg comes back?
Sounds like a plan. And for those who are attending, as you can see, we have to be flexible in these times. And we're just so grateful you're all here. So Kara, I think we'll flip it over to you and let you share your screen and get started.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Let me just get my screen shared. Okay, so you should be able to see, oops, press the wrong button. All right, can you see the presentation?
We can, if you click the present button. Yep, there we go. We're in the clear.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for having me on this call. I'm really excited to talk with you all and share the project COVID Near You. Just as a quick background, I'm Kara Seawalk. I'm a project manager at Boston Children's Hospital for the Innovation and Digital Health Accelerator, where we launched this project. So a little background before I get into COVID Near You. So our research team at Boston Children's Hospital launched a tool in 2012 called Flu Near You as a response to the H1N1 outbreak in 2009, which is designed as a participatory influenza surveillance platform for engaging the public in contributing health data to track seasonal flu. And over the past 8 or so flu seasons, we've supported national, state, and local level public health officials understand influenza at the community level from folks on the ground. Traditional surveillance is usually from laboratory confirmed testing. And so we saw a real need for data reported from the public by the public on what's happening with them and how they're feeling. And this data is really beneficial because it's providing insight from a cohort of people who may not be seeking medical care and could potentially not be captured in traditional surveillance. And another benefit of this type of crowdsourcing of data for health surveillance is that it is provided in real time, particularly from the CDC's perspective on the national scale. There is a couple of weeks delay in reporting up to that national level. So having some insights and early signals what's happening across the US is really impactful because the sooner we know what's happening, the better we are to prepare against it. So it's with this background and expertise that our team of epidemiologists and researchers and software developers saw a need to pivot the flu near you technology that we developed to support COVID efforts, which is why we launched COVID Near You. And just as a quick plug, while COVID surveillance is extremely important right now to help battle the current COVID pandemic, if you do have an interest in participating in Flu Near You, you can sign up at www.flunearyou.org. And it's a really engaging population for seasonal flu tracking. So with that quick background, what is COVID Near You? At the end, simply the COVID Near You platform is a system designed for folks across the US to contribute their health status to help scientists and epidemiologists and researchers understand the true burden of disease from COVID-19. At this point in time, we all know from the news and from our health officials that there's not enough information in the hands of our public health officials to really understand the true burden of this disease, particularly because there is a severe lack of testing, not only across the United States, but across the globe. And so what we're hoping to do is to supplement that gap of knowledge with information that we can gather from anyone and everyone who wants to participate. So really simply, I think the best way to kind of go over what COVID Near You is just to go step by step into how the platform functions. So the first step is going to our website. It's covidnearyou.org. We built the platform and launched it in mid-March for the United States. And as of last week, we launched this for Canada and Mexico as well. So it covers the entire North America. So upon coming to the website, users are given a really simple question: how are you feeling? And whether you're feeling great or not feeling well, we want to hear from you. From a epidemiology perspective of understanding disease trends, it's just as important for us to know who is healthy as well as who is ill. So that's why we give an opportunity for you to contribute either way. So if you are feeling ill, the next step is to submit the symptoms that you may be experiencing. And so we designed this as a really simple and quick survey tool to get to the meat and bones of what you are able to provide. So here you can see, you can select what symptoms you're experiencing, ranging from fever and fatigue, cough, shortness of breath, nausea, loss of sense of smell and taste, loss of appetite, stomach pains, cramping, all of these that are potentially related to COVID and could provide some insight into this disease, as well as additional symptoms that may not be related to COVID, but could be interesting to observe if they're being experienced with those symptoms in conjunction. So once you submit the symptoms you're experiencing, we ask a couple of follow-up questions. The first being, what day did you start feeling ill? We know from running Flu Near You that participants don't always have an ability to report in their symptoms at the moment they're experiencing them, which is why we want to give users the ability to submit the date of symptom onset after it may have begun. Particularly if you're really sick and in bed, you don't really want to go to a website and detail all your information. So we allow the ability to provide that retrospectively as well. So once you select the date that you started experiencing your symptoms, we also ask, did you seek a health professional for these symptoms with a range of options for you to choose? And then, have you been tested for COVID-19, yes or no? If you select yes, we also ask what the results are, which can provide some really interesting insights into who's being tested and who's testing positive. Just from our expertise with flu surveillance, we also find it interesting to ask users for this project if they've received a flu vaccine in the last year. The reason being, we don't know too much about COVID yet. It is a novel and emerging disease and virus. So we find that asking this type of question is also really important to understanding what could potentially be correlated to contracting the virus. Next up, we ask if you have been in quarantine or isolation. So this question is really important because when we first launched the platform, there wasn't as much societal pressure to stay at home. And we've seen that change obviously over the last month and a half, but understanding who is staying home, who is not, who's been told to be in quarantine and to stay home is really important to understand mobility information in terms of how you're restricting yourself from society. And then another question we ask is if you've traveled outside the United States within 14 days before symptom onset. This question was really, really important at the beginning of the outbreak when we first started to see cases, imported cases come into the United States. Now not as much, but still very interesting to continue to ask as we move forward into the pandemic even further. And then if you did select that you've traveled outside of the United States within 14 days of symptom onset, we ask what country was the last one you've visited. And then lastly, to the best of your knowledge, have you been in direct contact with anyone who has been a confirmed case of COVID-19, particularly because known exposure is a risk to contracting the virus. So that's really important information for researchers and public health to know as well. And then lastly, we just ask some demographic information. So how old are you, what your gender is, and your zip code as well. So once you get through the survey for when you're not feeling well, we also ask you to submit your phone number. We find that it's great to have a user check out the website one time, but what we're really interested in is collecting longitudinal data. So by submitting your phone number, you can actually engage with the project so that you'll receive text message reminders to report each week on how you're feeling, as well as provide and receive information on the virus itself and any local information that we are able to provide to you. And this SMS campaign that we're launching is really to keep engagement among the community that is participating in COVID Near You. So I think a really good question that a lot of citizen scientists always ask is why is this project needed? Particularly with COVID Near You, one of the biggest challenges that we've had with this outbreak in terms of understanding disease transmission is that lack of extensive testing across the United States and North America. And so providing this type of data source to researchers and scientists and public health officials really can provide and fill that gap of knowledge that's currently missing. And hopefully we're starting to get a better job and a better handle of testing. But even still, this data can really provide some supplemental knowledge to those folks who really need it. As I mentioned with our Flu Near You project for COVID Near You, this is real-time data. We're capturing individuals who may not be seeking medical attention and wouldn't be captured in any testing data regardless. Particularly with COVID, there are many cases that have been identified as mild or even asymptomatic, meaning that an individual is not experiencing symptoms at all or very mild versions of those symptoms. So understanding where that's happening as well is something we're really interested in understanding. And then again, novel data can really supplement traditional tracking. not only to identify areas where we have a severe symptomology in the United States today, but also potentially identify hotspots of the pandemic and of the disease as we move forward. As we know, there's no vaccine yet, we don't have any medication, so it may not go away for a while. So understanding and getting real-time insights into where we're seeing symptoms related to COVID is going to be extremely important moving forward. And so having participants on the ground and citizen scientists across North America participate in this type of platform will be crucial and extremely satisfying to have all of us pitch in and help out. Another benefit of being a user on our COVID Near You platform is that not only do we want you to submit your health status information, but we also want to provide some insight to you on what's happening in your community. So right on our homepage on our website that you go to, you can scroll down and see this mapping of cases in your area. So when you first click on it, it's a national view. So we give kind of a national snapshot of reports that we've seen within our website reported to us over the past 2 weeks. Depending on what view you're on, this is showing for the United States here as an example. But if you were a user in Canada or in Mexico, you could also see the mapping for those countries as well. And so here you can see the purple dots are showing individuals who have reported COVID-like symptoms to our platform. And COVID-like symptoms, here we're using a really strict definition. It's folks who reported having a fever with cough or fever and shortness of breath, which are the 3 primary symptoms defined in the WHO and CDC's case definition of COVID. However, we all know from reports that we've seen coming out over the past several weeks, there's a number of symptoms related to COVID that are not included in that case definition. So even more important to keep reporting when you're experiencing those symptoms so that we can kind of get an insight into who's affected and where. And then we also show who has tested, who has reported taking a test. And this information is important to see how extensive testing is and how accessible it is, or a lack thereof across the US as well. So from a national view, you can also zoom into your specific zip codes. You can see here in that search bar, I put in my Boston zip code. Obviously, I'm based in Boston, being at Boston Children's Hospital. And so you can see in the Boston area, you can see clusters of folks who have reported on this site. And then you can also zoom into the specific zip code that you live in to see who in your community is also reporting activity on COVID near you as well. On the bottom right hand of the screen, we also show COVID-like activity in Massachusetts. So not just reported on our site, but rather from an aggregated perspective for your state or for the US. So you can see a total confirmed case and total confirmed death for that area. So initial findings to date, across North America, we have over 750 reports collected. When we first launched the project, we set a very minimal goal of trying to hit over 100,000. But now that we've collected so much, we're hoping to continue that effort and move it forward to in the millions. With most COVID surveillance, what we're really hoping to find is continual reporting. And again, because that information longitudinally can really provide some deep insights into continued symptom behavior. So looking at some initial findings, these are some really, really early analyses and mappings from our research team at Boston Children's Hospital. But I did want to share it with this group because it could provide some insights into how the data is being used. So here you can see a mapping of COVID-like illness, which again, as we previously defined as fever and cough, or fever and shortness of breath. So from this map, you can see from the week of April 6th to April 12th, where the highest percent CLI is observed in the United States for areas and states that we've seen over 200 reports. And then looking at this graph, we wanted to graph for this week of April 6th to the 12th of medical visits by age groupings. And so what we're finding for all medical visits in that first column is that there really isn't a huge discrepancy between the age groupings for those who are experiencing respiratory patterns of illness. But we are seeing a difference in the types of respiratory patterns. So you can see those who are experiencing only cough are not seeking medical care as much as those who are reporting all three. And then we're also grouping it by urgent care and emergency visit as well. And our research team is continuing to look into this data to see what early insights we can provide and share publicly with our partners. And we hope to continue the effort to partner with public health officials to provide this detailed findings with them as well. So a great question is, how can you help? The big question we want answered from you is, joining the movement. I think getting involved, and we're all at home at this point and there's not much a lot of us can do. This is a really great way for you to take a couple of seconds each day or each week and contribute your health status to help public health professionals and scientists track COVID as we move forward in this pandemic. And so again, that URL is covidnearyou.org, and you can sign up today to participate. And then if you'd like to contact us, we do have a Twitter handle. It's @covidnearyou. And we do also have an email address. So if you'd like to contact us directly, this is our email address. It's covidnearyou@healthmap.org. And I think that's all from me.
All right, Kara, if you stop sharing your screen, we can throw it back to Dr. Anna Funk.
Sure.
Cool. Well, I have bad news for you all, and it's that we are pretty much out of time. I've been secretly discussing with our event runners, and they said that we could get our presenters to answer all of the questions that have come in. And then we will put together a blog post that we can share with you. So we'll definitely make sure everybody gets answers to questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. I just had a question. Can we continue the conversation on Discover's Facebook page too? Definitely. Just keep your questions coming. Contact everybody. Everybody's happy to answer questions you have. I'm so thankful you all tuned in. Thank you to our presenters, our viewers. I think that's it.
Yes, and thank you especially to Anna for hosting us today. And we're going to go ahead and stop sharing and end it here. So we'll see you all on the blog, on Discover Magazine's Facebook, and we hope that you have a great Wednesday. Bye, everybody.
Bye.